it really made me realize that if I'm falling into this trap, how many more other people are falling into that trap? And not just falling into that trap, but digging the hole so much deeper. It's officially April, which means we're 4 months into 2024, and man, has it been a busy one. This year started off great with the 3M half marathon, and this is the second time that I filmed it, which is great because it allows me to revisit some of the things that I wasn't able to capture last year, but also it gave me a better idea of what to expect. Then I went from the half marathon in February, filming the Austin marathon, and this year they did it big, had the most people coming out for the marathon, and being able to capture that, not just the runners, but also capture everything that was going on in the event, from people performing to the live events that were going on, but especially the crowd cheering on the runners. That was so much fun. And then that led also to just being able to film the San Antonio marathon as well. And I did that on a Zoom e-bike, which really, really helped being able to cover that much ground in a short amount of time. And so one thing after the other, it's just been so great filming. But not just filming, I've also been able to travel a lot more this year. I was able to go to Flagstaff, Arizona, and capture this beautiful property called Village Camp. So being able to see all the snow and the mountains and just experience everything that was around there was so amazing. But also being able to capture everybody's experience and their smiles and how much fun they were having on the property was probably one of the favorite things that I got to do. I clocked in, I think, over 20,000 steps or almost 30,000 steps one of those days, which means I was such a busy person. And then I went from that to this last week, I was actually in Moab, Utah, capturing another property that's also a Village Camp property. Again, first time in Utah, and seeing those mountains and seeing all the beauty that was out there was so stunning for me. It made me realize some things that I feel I've let slip by the wayside. You see, back in 2019, it was my earnest prayer to God that I wanted to become a professional videographer. And what I mean by that is to provide for my family with the skills that He has given me in videography and photography. To be at the place where I want to be, right? I want to be a great videographer. I want to be a great photographer. That's not going to come by staying in bed. That's not going to come by sitting on the couch. Hard work and dedication pays itself off. Just like everybody else, we were greatly affected by the pandemic. But that allowed me to take a large leap of faith and trust God in this pursuit of becoming a professional videographer. And so I spent months learning and refining my skill as a videographer, but at the same time, not just refining my skill in the craft, in the way that I edit or even the way that I film, but also in my relationship with God. I felt like that time of the entire pandemic and the lockdown, there was just a lot of grief and a lot of pain and a lot of sadness. And one of the things that I clung to the tightest was my faith in God. And I feel like that's what started Ariel Austin. That's what allowed me to create the things that I wanted to create, to amplify the beauty that was around me, was because God was doing that in my life. Like, despite the pandemic and despite everything that was going on, and just like everybody else, we had people in our family that passed away because of it, and we were all hurt by it. But at the same time, God was doing something through it, and He was using it for a reason that I didn't really know of until now. And I know early on in the pandemic, praying to God and just being like, Lord, help me find a way. Help me just learn this skill. There's a lot of things that I don't know, and there's a lot of things that I keep messing up on, like make me better and give me the energy and give me the knowledge and give me the creativity to be able to take this skill and craft it in a way that is beautiful and that glorifies You. And so one thing led to the other. And as my social media account started growing, I began to realize, wow, so many people really do enjoy my work, but not many people know what is the fuel to my fire. Like, where do I get this happiness from? Where do I get this joy from? Why do I see the world in the way that I do? And so the last few years has really just been me honing in the skills of a videographer. It wasn't until about 2021 where I decided to take the step of becoming a content creator and using the skills that I've acquired in videography and photography, content creation, graphic design, and all that kind of stuff to put it in my own wheelhouse to allow that to benefit me. I feel like for the longest time, I was doing that for other people and helping other people grow their brand and grow their presence online. And I never did that for myself. I never took myself serious enough to take that step. And so in about mid to late 2021, I decided to go full on and become a content creator, posting multiple times a day, collaborating with other people, creating content all the time. It was crazy, but it was a lot of fun, and it allowed me to be the person who I am today until that trip to Utah. So when I got back from Utah, I was in a real pinch to get these photos edited as fast as I could. And so while I was going through these, I ended up looking at the photos that I took at the Arches National Park. I didn't get to spend a lot of time there, but the time that I did get to spend there was mesmerizing. This place was so beautiful and so stunning. And I feel like I wasn't able to feel any of it. Matter of fact, I really don't even remember the experience. It wasn't until I sat down and I began to edit these photos that I ended up realizing I didn't have my usual one-on-one with God. You see, when I travel places and when I go places and when I do these kinds of jobs, I try to take time away from everything that's going on and separate myself from the work and devote just some time to be alone with God, to step back and to look at all that He's done in my life, right? He's taken me from, someone who was not smart, was not talented, was going nowhere in life, and made a person who is actually ambitious and joyful and motivational and wants to spread happiness and joy to people. And so there's times where I like to step back and be around everything God created to humble myself and be like, man, though work is going on and though life is going on and though things are going on, like, look at all that God has created around you. Like, look at how marvelous and majestic and powerful and beautiful He is. And I didn't get to experience that in Utah. And made me realize this dilemma that I've been having the last 6 months to a year, which is, what do I love more? Or where is my heart really? You see, if you were to ask me, hey, what is the thing that you love the most? And what is the thing that consumes your thoughts? And what is the thing that you are passionate about? I can look at you in the face and say, God. I love reading books about God, and I love reading my Bible, and I love watching lectures and sermons, and I love learning about God. But if you were to look at my memory cards, if you look at my Instagram, if you were to look at my calendar, if you were to look at all my stuff, the thing that consumes the most of my time is work. I'm always working, whether it's working for clients, working for the YouTube channel, working for Instagram, working for, whatever I'm doing. I feel like I don't ever really get to turn that part of me off. I feel like I'm always looking at things in a creative way, which isn't negative, but I began to see how that was affected, where I was so involved with the work that I was missing out on the worship. And so now, after these last few days of reflecting, I've been asking myself, like, what is it that you want to do? You see, we also just moved out of an apartment into a house, which has allowed me to have this new studio and have this new setup and do all the things that I was not able to do before. And so what I want to do with this channel, and after much reflection and after a lot of thought and even counsel from friends and my wife and other people, is I want to create content that allows people to not just see a beautiful world in front of their screen, but imagine a beautiful world in their mind, to look at the world the way that God does, to look at the world in all of its beauty and all of its splendor, and to really be amazed at the things that are in front of you. You see, the last few years, I've been able to capture some amazing views, to create a lot of great content that's garnered hundreds of thousands of views and thousands of likes and have made people hundreds of thousands of dollars. But at the end of the day, anybody could do that. At the end of the day, you can put a camera in anybody's hands and you could put a phone in anybody's hands, and they'll be able to create for you some sort of content. We see it all over the internet. We see it all over social media. But at the end of the day, that really doesn't matter. Because what I want to do is actually have an impact in the world that I'm living in. Especially now that I'm a parent and we have our second child on the way, it's really making me think about what kind of future are my kids going to have? And what kind of future am I going to produce for them? And am I going to be somebody who's going to let that future just come without me saying anything? Or am I going to get them prepared for the future and affect it in a positive way? And that's what I want to do with this channel. I want to create more content that is not just making people better photographers and better videographers and better entrepreneurs, but people who have the right heart to do those things. I want to start creating content that gives people a purpose beyond just how to create beautiful videos and how to make more money and how to run your business. I want to make content that affects the heart and the mind and the soul, because ultimately that is what drives us to create our art. And if we have beautiful art all around, if we have motivational art, if we have art that is really done to the highest level of its skill for the highest purpose, then I think that is going to create a much, much better society. You know, another thing that I've really wrestled a lot with lately has been my identity. You know, who am I and what do my successes and my failures really mean? There's this really great video with Kobe Bryant where he's talking about his relationship with his father.
My father was really influential at a really critical time where I had a summer where I played basketball when I was like 10 or 11 years old. And here I come playing and I don't score 1 point the entire summer.
Really?
I remember crying about it and being upset about it. And my father just gave me a hug and said, listen, whether you score 0 or score 60, I'm gonna love you no matter what.
Wow.
Now that is the most important thing that you can say to a child. Because from there I was like, okay, that gives me all the confidence in the world to fail. I have the security there. But to hell with that, I'm scoring 60.
And Kobe talks about how that gave him the freedom to become a much better basketball player. His identity was not produced from the amount of points that he was scoring, but it was already solidified by the love of his father. He didn't need to perform to gain his father's love. He already had that. That love fueled him and gave him the freedom to be one of the greatest basketball players of all time. And I feel like I forgot about that love on this trip. I forgot about the love that God has for me, that despite what I produce, despite who I am, despite my bank account, despite all the things that I do, whether good or bad, his love for me is what remains. His love for me is what fuels me, and his love for me is what keeps me going and inspires me every single day. And so being able to sit in that reality that I was finding my identity in the content that I was making, I was finding my identity in the views that I was getting and likes and the shares and the comments and all that kind of stuff, it really made me realize that if I'm falling into this trap, how many more other people are falling into that trap? And not just falling into that trap, but digging the hole so much deeper. So this brought up the topic in my mind of what kind of content creator am I going to be? Am I going to be one of those Christian content creators that's doing art from the church, or am I going to be doing content that's for the church? So what I decided was both. I don't think I want to be for the Christians and I don't want to be for the non-Christians. I want to be a channel that anybody could come and find truth and understanding, but ultimately everything that I want to say is rooted in the scriptures and rooted in the Bible, because I believe that is the only source of life and truth that we ultimately have. And so the way that I was distinguishing this was, if I'm doing art from the church, that's kind of missional. That's almost like being an ambassador, letting people know like, hey, as a Christian, this is the way we see things. This is the way we portray things. This is our ideology, our worldview, our belief. And so I want to make content that is letting the world know, hey, as Christians, this is what we stand on and this is what we agree on. And I know there's going to be other Christians out there who disagree, but I think ultimately what I'll be saying, the majority of Christendom will agree on. And the second thing is I want to create art for the church. There's a lot of Christians out there who I meet on a weekly and monthly basis who want to take the leap of faith and become a content creator or see what it's like, but they feel like they can't. They feel a little ashamed. They feel like embarrassed about it almost. And so as somebody who is a content creator, I kind of felt it my duty to be like, hey, you know what? I'm feeling the same pressure. Why not be the one to lead the charge? Why not be the one to set the example? Why not be the one to step forward in faith the way that God has been calling me to and create the content that he's been wanting me to create? And so that doesn't mean that I don't want to do any more tutorials on how to take photos or how to edit videos or drone stuff and all that kind of stuff. And especially things when it comes with Austin and Texas and all the things that I love. But ultimately what I want to do is convey to the audience what a Christ-centered worldview looks like. What it looks like to be a Christian husband, what it looks like to be a Christian father, what it looks like to be a Christian content creator, what it looks like to be a Christian everything. Because I think ultimately what the Bible says is that God is the God of this world. God is the God of all creation, and God is in all things. And so as we live our life, we live our life before the face of God. The Latin phrase for this is coram Deo. We live our life before the face of God. And so everything that we do is in his sight, and everything that we do, he looks at and he pays attention to. And so why not put on a performance for God? You know, I think about me and my son, and when I walk out of the office or when I come home, he automatically just wants to play and dance because he wants to bring me into the thing that he's experiencing with joy, right? He wants to say, hey, Dad, look how happy I am. And look at the joy I'm experiencing in this thing. Come and join me in this joy. And I think God calls us to do the same thing. Whatever you're passionate about as a Christian, whatever you want to do, whatever you feel artistic on, maybe it's photography, maybe it's videography, maybe it's dance, maybe it's theater, maybe it's cooking a brisket, maybe it's, doing some YouTube. I don't know. But what I do know is that as a Christian, God calls you to do what he has gifted you to do for his glory and for his praise and for his honor. And what that looks like is doing it joyfully, doing it happily, doing it as a service, not just to him, but to everyone around you. And so as a content creator and as someone who gets fueled by the scriptures and by the God that I serve, I feel like it's wrong for me to not make a video like this and not talk about these kind of things. Again, especially in everything that's going on in the world and everything that we're experiencing and just a lot of the depression and all of the darkness that goes on in this world. I feel like most people just want to create that kind of content that's like, oh, look at what this person did. Oh, we got to expose this. And oh, look at this. And look how hard this is. And look how bad that is. But at the end of the day, where's the joy in that? Where's the happiness in that? What am I going to hold on to for hope? That's what I really want to do with this channel, is just give people a means of hope that keeps you going, not just in your business, not just in your art, not just in your creativity, but in your entire life in general. So if you're in the same boat and you're trying to figure out to yourself, okay, how do I figure out what God's calling me to? How do I know what God wants me to do, or what gifts and what talents he has for me? Well, the first thing I would ask you is, what are you good at? Like, what is something that you are really passionate about? Maybe it's something that you get paid for. Maybe it's something you do as a hobby. Maybe it's something that you see other people do that really produces this excitement in you that you want to learn. I would say go that route. Look for the thing that you're good at and invest, double down on that. And the second thing I would ask is, what grieves your heart, right? Where do you really want to help out? And where do you feel like, man, I wish this area of life could be better? Use your creativity to bring healing to what grieves you. Throughout the centuries, you see how art is really a balm, a healing. It brings a cure to so much of culture and society's ailments. And so whatever grieves your heart, make sure to apply your art there so that you're able to not just use the talents that you have for no purpose, but actually use it to solve something that's going on that you want to bring healing to. That's what I would say. Ask yourself, what am I good at? And where is my heart grieved? And I think once you answer those two questions, you'll begin to get a better idea of maybe what God is calling you to. Now, if you want to get motivated and inspired, make sure to watch this video right here. But if you want to crack up and you feel like laughing a little bit, make sure to watch this video. Until next time, catch y'all on the flip side.